welcome to We Got a podcast normally about Dragon Ball. From Nerve to Casper to Asuka, we're going to cover it all. I'm Ken.
And I'm Randy's in his heaven, all's right with the world.
It is. It is.
Beautiful. And I'm Doug's being a little bitch again.
All right. Oh, we got the last name in there this time.
Last
I like
name.
it.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Good stuff.
Don't dox me.
So, Doug, you're here with us now, and
Yes.
for all future episodes of this Ava podcast that we're going to do, you came in listening to us talk about End of Ava and Death True 2, and now you are an Ava expert. Is that correct?
I would say that actually. Yeah, indeed. After listening to your guys talk about it, I felt so. I didn't want to be on the Ava thing. I'm like, no more podcasts. I'm good with your Dragon Ball. But listening to you guys talk about it, explaining it, just gave me that Ava urge to watch again. And so I'm here now.
All right, and you have actually
I'm along for the ride.
You've been watching the show too, right?
Yeah, like that's. I just immediately hopped on that because I at that point I don't think I really had an intention on being on these podcasts. But after watching that, I'm like, no, yeah, I want to talk about this stuff and learn more because I still have more questions. Like even though you guys explained it, I still have so many questions.
So, how far into the show are you now?
I think episode 9.
Okay, so
I think it's after the Asuka and Shinji teaming up.
their like dancing routine that they do.
Yeah.
What's the name of that episode, Randy?
Both of you dance like you want to win.
There we go.
Nice.
I knew you'd know it. So, well, this time we're here to talk about the first of the 4 Rebuild films. And this, of course, is Rebuild of Evangelion 1.11, You Are Not Alone, known in Japan as Evangelion Shin Gekijoban Jo, which of course means new theatrical version beginning. And these movies, we have to wind it back all the way to End of Ava.
Please.
Just from a production standpoint. Now, we could do an entire podcast alone on the production of this movie. So we're going to kind of skate through it as fast as we can. Keep in mind, there is so much that we're skipping over. As I was doing research ahead of this, I was like, okay, I have to stop reading because we're not ever going to actually make it to the plot. So I had to just skip through
It's
it. But
that involved, huh?
it is. There is just so much that went into it, and the drive to make this the best possible thing it could be. You could make a movie out of the story of making Rebuild.
Why haven't
it's
they? Like a little
incredible.
documentary.
Well, there are documentaries about Ava. Most notably, I think there's one on Amazon Prime about 3.0 plus 1.0. But that's for another episode of this here Ava-themed, not Dragon Ball podcast. So what is Rebuild? So the End of Ava premiered July 19th, 1997 in Japan. And then soon after that, there was a little show called Pokemon or Pocket Monsters in Japan. And on December 16th, 1997, the infamous Computer Warrior Porygon episode airs. So that's how far back we have to go back for reverberations, Doug, of where we're going here for Ava 1.11. Because I don't know if you've watched...
For those that don't know the Pokemon fiasco, maybe you should explain that.
Right. So if you've ever watched anime these days, most notably coming to mind here would be something like My Hero Academia. It's even in the intros you see this kind of thing where there's suddenly like a lot of flashing animation going on, and instead of it, I don't know, having the right hype or impact that it should, it's all kind of grayed out. And they really bring the levels down so that kids don't have seizures. And the reason that Japan is so sensitive to this is that on December 16th, 1997, Computer Warrior Porygon aired 38th episode of Pocket Monsters, and infamously has this big blue and red flashing scene in it. And lots of kids had seizures. Reportedly. I mean, I don't know. I didn't research into the details on that.
Right. I think it was only like a few cases, but even just a few cases alone is enough to,
It
put a scare in parents.
It put the show on hiatus for 4 months.
Yep.
And we never saw Porygon in the show ever again. Like, I think at all. In any kind of feature.
Not just that episode, but the Pokemon in general, like in its entirety?
Poison. He's poison to Pokemon in the show. Yeah.
That's
maybe he'll
incredible.
come back in that new anime they got on. But as far as that, but the reverberations of that are still being felt today.
Yeah,
So-
why so? How's that connected to Ava?
Doug, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
So after End of Eva was completed, of course, Hideaki Anno, the writer and director, series, I don't know exactly what you put him, series showrunner of Eva.
Father
Of Eva,
Mastermind.
yeah. He was working on a series called His and Her Circumstances, which was Gainax's first ever anime adaptation of another source. It was a manga, and he was directing that. But he became disillusioned with the whole process because TV Tokyo's rules around anime became so strict of what you could and could not do because of Computer Warrior Borrigan.
Right.
And for the most part, that was what made Hideaki Anno put anime behind him, and he stopped doing TV anime.
Oh, wow.
And so he did 3 live-action films, during which he started to have ideas of what he wanted to do with Eva next. But he kept doing these movies. He did, I think, probably most famously of his live-action movies before he started doing like Shin Godzilla, of course. He did a TV or a live-action movie version of an anime called Cutie Honey. And then he also was involved in an OVA for it as well. Or Randy would call them OVAs.
That's what I do. I'm not going to make any excuses or apologies. That's what I think it's a nice way to say it. I know that's already another word for something else, but oh well.
So he was tired with the OVAs and he wanted to get back to Evangelion. So he left
Nice.
Gainax because he felt like what he wanted to do with Eva could not be done at Gainax. So he goes off and he forms Studio Kara, which begins recruiting people in August of 2006. And in December 2006 issue of New Type magazine, which would have come out in November, which means that whenever his statements were made, were probably around that same time he was starting Kara right up. He said that he was happy to recreate Eva as, quote, he wanted it to be.
Ooh.
Now,
Meaning like how the TV series he created it, he even then had some restraints?
so last time we talked about the budgetary restraints at the end of Eva, and that's not really the complete story.
Mm-hmm.
Eva was a huge money-making, like, golden goose for Gainax. Now, Gainax was doing a lot of shady stuff as well, and there's a lot going on. So it was more so like pressure on the animators and everything that they were doing. So I'm sure at some level budget was somewhere involved, but it's not like budget killed Ava. It was many factors that came together at the end
Maybe
of that show.
his vision, like he got to think about it more.
Yeah, thinking about it more. And Anno is heavily inspired by Gundam. Who'd have thought, right? He makes a show with big
Shocker.
mechs. Yeah. And Gundam has like 40 different shows or something exaggerated like that. And that's what Anno wanted to take Ava to the next level like that. He wanted to, I saw on Wikipedia, someone wrote it as Gundamizing Ava. He wanted,
because wasn't it
go ahead.
Reconquista, which was kind of a retelling of sorts of original Gundam, or is it? I'm trying to remember which thing he specifically called out of like going back, redoing a thing that you've done before, but with new techniques, maybe some more, kind of like a second draft of things.
Yeah, and then there was also
A rebuild, if you will.
the versatility of Gundam, because you could have serious political dramas, and then you could have G Gundam, so 2 very different things that you could have. And Ava was very much widely popular in Japan. Some might say it's like the Minions of Japan, but it's still a very dark, very niche story. And he wanted to take that and bring it back to the teens and tweens and make a much more widely accessible product than the show necessarily would have been. Something that
And he
could
probably really wanted Rei Ayanami to be slinging some Pizza Hut pizza.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the idea of the rebuild started. Because I would argue, as we're going to go, no future spoilers, they're going to get a lot more confusing than the series ever was. So the first movie, Ava 1.11, formerly known as Ava 1.0 and then 1.01, but the cut that's widely available today is 1.11.
What is with the 0.11? Is that like theatrical release and then
1.0 was the
that?
original theatrical release. 1.01 was the DVD or original DVD Blu-ray release.
Right. I don't know the extent of things. Basically, the big thing that I read about was that there was a lot of lighting changes. Like some scenes were way too dark. So they're like, we're going to lighten that up from the theatrical release to the home release. There might have been some animation touch-ups.
Wow.
Oh, there was a misspelling, like the word emergency on a screen. It was like emergency.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, fix
funny.
that. And then 1.11 just kind of took that another step further.
But like, is Ava the only one that does that kind of thing where they include like 1.11 in their titles, or is that a common thing in Japan?
I think it's an uncommon thing, but a lot of times things will have revisions from their original release, but they're not going to bring it up and make it a marketing thing, I suppose.
I've only seen this with like Ava, so it feels like an Ava thing, and it's kind of appropriate with all like the, I don't know, robots, I don't know.
Patch notes on an anime.
Yeah.
Basically. This series of movies got away from Anno and the team at Kara, both, I think, metaphorically and quite literally. So this first one was written by Anno, directed by Kazuya Tsurumaki, and a frequent collaborator and friend, Masayuki. And Anno is also listed as the chief director. So he was really involved in every step of the way, but he had these 2 directors under him kind of running the show. And of course, he had final say in anything. And a lot of this movie is shot-for-shot recreations of the series.
I was going to say, why would you need that many directors? Or you already have the script. You're just kind of changing a few things.
Well, you are. This is a very different product than that show was. A lot of that comes into visualizing how it's going to end up in the editing process as well. You do have to work with people to tighten up this screenplay of 6 episodes to come down to a 90-minute feature. That,
and of course, I'm saying that just from a perspective of someone who's never animated before in my life. So it's very like, why they need all that? They didn't do that. But yeah.
So there's a lot more to it than it would seem. But the original vision of how these movies were going to release, Randy, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So he was in talks of doing this. You had brought up these remarks and things were made in 2006. And the original film, 1.11, was scheduled to come out fall 2007. Well, actually, summer 2007 got pushed back into September. So fall, summer, late, whatever, 2007. The next movie was supposed to come out, I think, either winter or spring of 2008. And then the last 2, 3 and 4, were supposed to be a double feature that summer 2008. And Ken, what years did these 4 movies actually come out?
Nothing near that.
I do believe the first one came out in 2007. The second one came out in 2009. The third one came out in 2012. And then, of course, the fourth one came out in 2021 in Japan. I don't think it made it to us until 2022.
August 2021. No, it was August 2021.
But a huge gap.
Here.
What the hell happened?
Well, there was a thing called COVID-19.
But before that. In the 12 years prior.
Yeah.
We'll get into that when we get to that movie of what exactly happened. But yeah, you think there's almost as long of a gap between the third and fourth movies as there was between End of Ava and 1.11.
Wow.
So just to give you an idea of the tortured path of these movies that they've been through. So let's get into the movie itself, right?
Let's do it.
Please.
Okay. Episodes 1 through 6 of Ava. All right, there we're done. No, I'm kidding.
Cool. That was a great podcast.
I told you that's all it is.
So the movie opens up, and what is the very first shot of this movie, Doug?
I forget.
It's the Red Sea of the waves lapping at it.
Like from the end of Ava.
And the water's red. Yeah.
That did throw me off. I'm like, this seems different.
Yeah, and I think that's a message from Anno saying from the very beginning, this is something different. Mm-hmm. It's the same, but with a twist.
Wow.
So Sakiel, who is now the fourth angel, he was the third in the original, attacks Japan as Misato Katsuragi is on her way to pick up Shinji Ikari, who you might know from a series called Neon Genesis Evangelion. So
that's
he might seem familiar to you. Who's been called for by his father, Gendo. And then they're attacked in a N2 mine, which is just like I don't know if it's like nuclear. No, but I don't think so because there would be fallout and...
Yeah, it's the strength of a nuclear weapon without any of the radiation and harmful effects like that.
Yeah, so an N2 mine is launched with the intent to kill Sakiel, but it ends up just kind of like halting his assault temporarily. And it gives Misato time to get Shinji back to Nerve, where he's instructed to pilot the Evangelion Unit 1 and fight Sakiel.
Damn.
Because the N2 mines didn't work.
What responsibility to just throw on a kid.
So now Nerve has been given permission to unleash Evangelion Unit 1.
Right.
For the first time since they've been testing these units to actually be used in combat. So
you said this angel is the fourth now as opposed to the third?
It is the fourth, yeah. So we're going to get into that. It's another thing.
I feel like a lot of my questions are going to be like, we're going to get into that later.
Yeah, so when we're reviewing GT, right, we're not really worried about future spoilers. The way we do that review is that you're rewatching it with us or with a lot of knowledge of what's going on in that series. With these movies that we're gonna do, we're gonna try to stay as spoiler free as we can for future spoilers, which is gonna really complicate stuff like talking about why Sakiel is now the fourth angel. But they do address that in a future movie. Okay. So, and we will get.
So I'm supposed to be confused.
You're supposed to be confused. Yeah, you're supposed to be. Cool. I mean, first of all, you're going into this
mission
movie.
Accomplished.
I would say the average Eva fan goes into this movie and they probably notice the red water, but they don't pick up that Sakiel's number has been changed. Yeah. Like, I feel like that's a little bit more minutia, but his number has been changed. And we may not be able to ever answer why, but we can tell you what happened.
Well,
and why that's different, I guess.
Are you able to tell me what the first and second angels were?
In this movie, we're told one, which is Lilith, which is the second angel. We're not told anything about the first, the third one shows up later.
But if you are going on knowledge from the original series, Adam is the first.
Yeah.
Lilith is the second. Sakiel was the third.
They're all the same angels, or like Adam and Lilith are special?
Well, they're
from the TV series.
Yeah, they're from the first ancestral race.
Okay,
but
they're still just considered angels.
Yes, everything, even the humans are angels at the very end. They're the final angels that have to be fought. Anything that is, it goes. Let me simplify it real quickly for you, Doug. Adam, Lilith, a long string of creatures born from Adam, and then humans born from Lilith.
Because the angels are not given these numbers by themselves. They're given to them by humans who are only given numbers by when they show up. So you were the first one that we saw, you're number one. You're the second one we saw, you're number two.
Gotcha.
So it's not a rank or anything like that. It's just by who showed up first.
But humans are the final angel when the Japan Special Defense Force strikes Nerve. They say something along the line. Force. Yeah, there you go.
Shield.
So after realizing that an injured Rei Ayanami will have to pilot Unit 1 if he refuses, Shinji agrees to pilot the Eva.
Which includes our first, I think, big change from the original TV series in that we don't have Sakiel shooting off an explosion, rattling Nerve, where then the lights start to fall down and Unit 1 activates on its own to stop it from coming down. Instead, it rumbles, Rei tips over, and Shinji goes to help her on his own, and then decides that's enough for him to decide to do it, and there's no mystery. It's still just a robot. It's just sitting there not doing anything.
Oh, I didn't really... Yeah, you're right. That's cool. Cool. I missed the...
Well, they're tipping their hand on some things, and they don't want to... Every change is, I think, incredibly intentional of where they're going to end up for later.
Right.
So we got to just go with the ride for this point.
Mm-hmm.
So during this battle, Shinji's been launched and he's fighting in Unit 1. Unit 1 is critically injured and goes berserk, tearing apart Sakiel's AT field. Before it can be defeated, Sakiel wraps itself around Unit 1 and explodes. This, I think, is the first big change.
Yeah. Because in the OG one, it just cuts right before it goes berserk, right?
Right.
Now, it's cut between two episodes and used as a flashback, but it's the end of the fight that differs in that in the original TV series, Sakiel blows up, Unit 1 emerges from the flames, and its helmet casing falls off, and Shinji turns and looks and sees in a reflection from a building that there's some sort of organic head there that regrows its eye. And here, that's not a thing that happens.
Not present.
Now, Doug, have you read the manga?
No. Barely know that it exists.
So the manga does not do the hard cut that the TV series did. That is exclusive to the TV series.
And the manga came after the TV series, and so and these rebuild movies are kind of going with that.
The early manga was coinciding with the TV series, and then the TV
really?
series outpaced it quickly.
Written
Because
by
the
Ano
manga-
or what?
No, it was by Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, who was the character designer for the TV anime series. So he handled both the writing and the art for the manga. It was happening concurrently with the TV series. The TV series ended in 96. The manga went on and didn't finish until 2012, which was after, 3 of the rebuild movies had already come out, but it was still continuing the story of the original thing, doing its own stuff.
How is it doing its own? What?
So, Doug, a good way.
Two different writers.
A good way to think about this is Ano and Sadamoto got together, they ordered a pizza, and they planned out Eva together.
Okay.
And then Ano said, "Hey, I'm going to go make a TV series," and Sadamoto said, "Hey, I'm going to go make a manga."
Okay.
And that's what happened.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, so they're both actually, I don't know Sadamoto's gender, so I'm going to say they're two dads who both created Eva together.
Yeah.
So, that clears it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, how are they ending up with the same results or different? Yeah. Okay.
So I think it makes sense that the TV series does it that way, given the time constraints of a 22-minute episode of anime, and giving it a really exciting ending to end something on.
I really love that. I prefer that, actually.
Yeah, but for purposes of a movie, it makes more sense to just do things chronologically as you go through. Yeah. I think, especially being pretty early on in the movie, it would be too much to suddenly go back to a flashback, and there are flashbacks in this movie that happen later, but we don't do that just yet.
You really get the differences of the medium of TV versus movie in these differences.
Doug,
it's great.
That's a brilliant way to talk about how this movie is handled, I think, is that very much with the medium in mind.
Yep.
Yeah. Even coming down to the score itself, we have the names escaping me. Randy?
Shiro Sagisu.
Sagisu, who also did Bleach, by the way, if you didn't know that. But Sagisu was brought back as composer. He did the music for the series. And Ano consulted with him and said, I want the music to sound deeper. So if you listen, more levels to it. So if you listen to the soundtrack of 1.0 and then the soundtrack of the original series, even just the dun 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 dun, the angel theme, the angel attack song is totally different.
Wow.
And it just sounds like it has so much more going on in the movie version because it was being created for a different medium.
Ah, okay. Awesome.
So Shinji awakens in the hospital and is a designated third child. Now they don't really go into clarifying who the first is at this point. We do get to it later in the movie. They say that it's Rei, the first one picked from the Marduk report or something, but they don't get into who the second is yet. They do, I think, in this movie reference Asuka very briefly in Germany. Yeah.
Yes.
But
yeah.
They aren't talking about that. And when I say no future spoilers, obviously Asuka's going to come. So when we say no future spoilers, we're assuming you have seen past
the
spoilers.
TV series
so we can go forward.
Yeah.
Spoilers, Asuka's going to be coming up in a future movie.
There's a girl named Asuka.
Misato invites Shinji to live with him, and at school he's beat up by Toji and Kensuke by association for the injuries sustained by Toji's little sister in the previous fight with Sakiel.
That's also a difference too, right? Because we skipped the whole introduction of these two schoolmates or just school in general, and everyone finding out. I love that scene in the TV series where all the kids find out that Shinji is the pilot. They message him on AIM or whatever, and they all freak out.
Yeah, so ahead of its time for a series set in 2015.
Yeah,
DMing Shinji
in the middle of class.
But yeah, they do leave out a lot of the emotion that leads up to Toji punching Shinji in the face, and it's just
which I feel like is fine for the movie medium. Like that, it makes sense. If they had to cut something, then I understand that.
So all is not well. Peace does not last very long. And Shamshell, again, none of the angels have names in the movie continuity, so we're just relying on the names that they had in the TV series up to a point. Basically, we're going to hit a point where they stop.
I didn't know they had names in the TV series.
Yeah. They all have, is it Hebrew names?
I can't exactly recall. It's just biblical.
Because of the biblical references this show has? Okay.
Right. And I believe it's episode 13 when they're doing the recap, which, Doug, you'll get there very soon.
Uh-huh.
Half of the episode is done as a recap, and it's like, white text on a black background. It'll be like, third angel, Sakiel attacks. Unit 1 launched. And it's just
I think I always skipped that episode, assuming it was just like a recap, like a...
Well, be careful this time, because the second half of the episode is all new. So don't skip that.
Okay.
And they do occasionally refer to the angels by name in the TV series. But
when did they come up with the name? As they show up? Or, I mean, they have to, right? Because they don't expect them.
They're all in the Dead Sea Scrolls, I think.
Oh, the Dead fucking Sea... That's the thing that always confuses the crap out of me. Yeah, those fucking Dead Sea Scrolls.
So they knew which angels were going to attack in which order. Of course, they couldn't plan for everything, every contingency, but yeah.
I need a whole podcast on that dang thing.
And I don't think Nerf was ever informed of this information. It's just kind of like, well, you guys will figure it out.
Yeah, you guys will figure out how to beat this virus that's attacking you. Deal with it. So Shamshel, now the fifth angel, strikes, and Toji and Kensuke are caught up in the action. They accompany Shinji inside Unit 1's plug during the battle and witness his struggle against the angel. Shinji disobeys an order from Misato to retreat and successfully destroys Shamshel. Just a great thing.
They were, I think, almost killed in the movie as opposed to the TV series. Like, I think the Unit 1's hands were in between the kids as opposed to in the TV series. I don't think they were close, but they weren't that close to Unit 1.
In between his fingers?
No, I don't think so. I could be mistaken, but I felt like there's a lot more danger in this movie than there was for them in that one.
I mean, we get to see Unit 1 flipping through the air rather than just one unanimated frame of just a silhouette coming at them, which is a bit more terrifying.
Yeah, and so that's another thing, talking about just the look of this movie in general, is that it's all 3D. For the most part.
Not all of it.
Fights, yeah, for the most part.
And it looks great.
There was the animator who, well, obviously, there was a lot of animators for this movie, but I can't remember his name or what exactly his role was, but basically the guy in charge of a bunch of this stuff talked about when making this first movie that he was interested in, getting to see what using 3D CG was like for a film like this, and it was something he was kind of experimenting with. So there are a lot of 2D shots for the angel fights and some 3D stuff, and I think he gets much more comfortable as movies go on, where I think it's eventually mostly all CG is what all of the Eva and Angel fights are.
In the 15 years that it takes to finish the movies, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you may also notice that Unit 1's design is a little different. Doug, did you pick up on that?
No.
So Unit 1, in addition to being more saturated colors, now has like the glowing green across its ribs.
Really?
Which I like a lot, because with people in Superman, right, they don't like Superman having the red underpants that he's wearing, but you really have to have that because it breaks up all the blue.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing against Unit 1's original design, but I think having that green stripe going across her abdomen breaks up all the purple. And also the inspiration for this was stuff like in Ultraman, which Anno is a huge Ultraman fan, and I did an Ultraman movie where it's dark. I don't know if he directed or produced it, but it's part of the Shin series of things, where there would be big fights at night in the darkness, and to have Unit 1 show up better, Unit 1 will now have glowing green bits to look. And it especially helps towards the end of this movie, where Unit 1 really stands out, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Are you pulling it up, Doug, to see?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up. Oh, I do like that a lot more. Yeah.
There's Unit 0 is also different. Unit 0 is now blue.
Yeah.
Whereas,
well,
yes,
in
Randy.
the TV series, it started out yellow, gets melted, and then repainted to be blue. But in this one, I think in the flashback...
Oh, you're right.
It is yellow. Top up. The bottom is now white rather than being all yellow. But so there's still just there's a little bit of yellow in its design for a little bit.
I had that mixed around, and I had it mixed around when I was watching the movie too. So thank you for correcting me on that. No I always forget which Unit 0 is from which version. That's my cross to bear, I think. So after being reprimanded for disobeying direct orders, Shinji runs away, but is shortly retrieved by Nerve operatives. I think this is probably the worst change in the movie.
It felt different, but I couldn't put my finger on it. What was different about it?
You spend a lot more time with Shinji on the lam. And he's like, he goes in the movie theater and he sees the couple
making out.
I thought it was insinuated to be a little more than that.
They were starting like they're making out and going deeper.
And he's like disgusted by it, and it kind of reverberates stuff with Misato and End of Eva as well. But and then he goes out in the wilderness and finds Kensuke out there randomly, and they bond.
Oh yeah.
And then everything goes on, and then I think he's with Kensuke, and that's when the nerve agents come in. But in this one, he just kind of aimlessly wanders around, sees the destruction, and then is like, all right. I'll go
That's
home.
the thing
That's
about
enough.
this movie is the movie medium is that the pacing just feels too quick. Everything is just boom, boom, boom. There's no time to breathe for any sentence at all. Like the sense of it's weird because the sense of urgency when like a angel attacks feels less urgent because of how quick things are happening. Does that make sense?
It does. I was talking to some other people after I watched this because I couldn't talk to you guys and waste it for the show. So I was talking to some other people, and one of the people I was talking to said that this movie misses a lot of the emotion from the show. Like, yeah, it goes beat for beat, the plot that happens, but the emotion is all left out of it because they have to go so fast and there's no time to just sit with it.
Like, I wasn't feeling a lot of the same things I was feeling while watching the TV series and just connecting with the characters or empathizing with them. It's just, it's just like, okay, on to the next thing. No time for Doug's slow brain to catch on to these things and then move on.
There's not enough time for Shinji to spend with Toji and Kensuke, which is a detriment. Same thing with a lot of, time with Masato at the apartment. Again, I think a detriment, but I think that it might be trying to make up for that by hoping that you're familiar enough with the TV series that you can kind of cobble together, okay, well, that happened, so then this is where their relationship goes, or what.
It's also my curse of like just having watched the TV series back to back with this movie that I can see that difference, but
I agree with everything, but I also still think this movie is a great first thing to show someone to get them into Eva.
Yeah.
Like, yes, at the end of this movie, they are going to show you Lilith and not lie about who it is. And yes, you are going to see Kaworu on the moon. But you're still, that's just like a taste of the intrigue that Eva has. And I still think like, hey, if you show someone 1.11, be like, if you like this, then go back to the series, watch that. Don't go to 2.22 right away, but watch the series. But I think 1.11 is probably a perfect thing to show someone who is interested but doesn't want to dedicate to an anime. Like, they want to get their toes wet, but I think this is a better way to do it.
See how they feel it out and like, oh, is this for me kind of deal.
Right. And I think this is a brilliant way to do that. So I really like this movie and this retelling, I think. And I feel like I like it more every time I watch it.
Really?
Yeah.
It had been a while for me, but I suppose would we be going over overall feelings about it towards the end of this whole
thing? We can sprinkle it
it
in. It's all good.
We'll sprinkle it in. But...
Yeah.
Sure.
So Shinji, Toji, and Kensuke bond at school, though, very quickly. It's really just the scene where they're looking at the girls. Shinji,
that's out of order too, right? Because Shinji at that point in the TV series is like constantly obsessed with Rei, but not because like she's a cute girl, but it's like my father gave her attention, and they both seem to be smiling at each other, right?
Well, there's that.
It's all
and
in the same order as the.
Saw her
in the very first episode when he gets off the phone and he hangs it up and he looks over, he sees Rei standing there.
That wasn't in the TV series.
It was.
Oh, okay.
It's all the same.
Well, all the mystery, but no, all these things happen. Like him at school looking at her, and then having the card that he's meant to give her.
Yeah.
It all happens after Gendo and Rei. Like he sees them both talking and smiling to each other. But
it's all in the same order.
That scene is now afterwards.
I remember all these points happening in episode 5. Episode 5 was the first episode of Eva I ever saw, so it's very much emblazoned.
If you're
in my
Shinji
brain.
and you see them smiling, you're like, why is my dad having this relationship with this girl that he doesn't have with me? And that's when he's obsessing over Rei, thinking about her, looking at her during school. But instead, that Gendo scene happens at the end of those scenes, which you guys didn't catch up on that?
I didn't catch that, but I do know it's all. So. This is all being orchestrated by Gendo. Gendo wants
that's something.
Shinji and Rei to grow closer.
Yeah, that's weird.
Which, of course, leads to a very awkward interaction at Rei's apartment.
Yeah.
That we can just kind of gloss over. But it's where Shinji finds Gendo's old glasses that Rei's been keeping from that incident.
Yeah.
At the,
and then the classic, like, whoa, I'm falling. I'm going to fall on you. The Love Hina trope.
I've never seen Love Hina. Is it any good?
It's, I like it a lot.
Probably was better back in the day, but
yes.
I don't think has aged super well.
So like Tenchi. No. Okay. All right.
I mean, 90s harem anime, man. That's just what's going to happen.
I was thinking about Tenchi the other day, and just as a quick tangent, I was thinking if you had tried to get me to watch Tenchi today, I would tell you you're a freak and that you should turn yourself into some sort of authority. And why would you ever watch something like this? And I think it's only because we were like force-fed, exposed through Toonami that I have such a fondness for it. Because if you think about what Tenchi's really about, hey, it's kind of gross.
Just a bit.
So, yeah.
On numerous levels.
Welcome to We Got a Podcast where we're reviewing the Tenchi Muyo OVAs. And anyways.
Well, what's gross about it? It's just the harem anime aspect, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's kind of...
Okay.
It gets grosser, Doug, than you think. There's
large age gaps. Ryoko is 700 years old, and he is 15.
Oh, yeah.
And children are had as you go further into the lore. Ramiel, the sixth angel, appears and begins drilling into the Geo front. Unit 1 is deployed, but it and Shinji suffer great injuries and are withdrawn. Shinji awakens from a brief coma, because they have to do, like, reconstructive surgery on his body because
God.
Granted, he's unconscious, from this when they bring him into the hospital. But like, if I was conscious, I would not feel like I'm going to be okay when they're like, all right, here's what's going to happen. We're going to put you in this bed and we're going to put this bed in a black box and then close it over you. Like, this seems like a coffin. I don't feel great being put in a coffin, guys.
Shinji awakens from a brief coma to find out that he will be sent out yet again to fight, but he refuses. And we're heading towards the next big difference in this movie. After Shinji expresses that he believes he is the only one in danger during an angel fight, Misato takes Shinji down to Central Dogma and reveals Lilith, the progenitor of all life on Earth. He learns that if the angels obtain Lilith, third impact will occur and destroy all life on Earth. Shinji agrees to pilot Unit 1 yet again.
I like this difference.
Misato knows way too much at this point in the series.
Right.
She doesn't learn
much more.
She doesn't learn about the angel being held until episode 15. And even then she's told it's Adam. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And that's after her promotion from the Operation Yashima stuff.
But in this one, she specifically says that everyone here at Nerve knows about this contingency. Like if an angel comes down here, the whole building will self-destruct or whatever.
Right. They may not know the details of why, but...
Yeah, I guess so, but yeah.
I had a thought, and maybe it's because... Maybe I just didn't catch it because of the pace of this film, but her bringing up, like, third impact will happen, and I thought, have they really gone over anything about second impact at all in this film before bringing that up? So, Ava, as a thing, likes to drop things here and there to have the audience asking, like, ooh, what's that? What does that mean? How does that connect? So it's kind of like, if this is your first time, what does that mean? What were the first two?
Yeah.
But
why am I hearing all these cicadas?
True.
Operation Yashima goes underway, and Shinji, in Unit 1, operates a giant positron rifle to snipe at Ramiel. And this is the part where a track called Angel of Doom, which is new for this movie, is played. And it's just one of the finest pieces of music in Eva, I think.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It was really good. It made the scene, they really tried to make the scene a lot more impactful, I guess because it was going to be the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Than they did
much
in the
more
TV
climactic.
Series. Much more climactic. Like, but he's talking like Misato's talking to Gendo, like, have faith in your son. Like, it's very melodramatic.
And it stands out particularly because it's not just a redo of previous tracks, whereas the rest of this movie has been, for the most part, I think. Everything's angel attack. You know these comfortable Ava themes that are all played through the movie.
With the apartment.
And then you get to this one and you're like, oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah.
So it's, again, these like little things that are being dropped in that are different as you go through this retelling of the series.
Mm-hmm.
The first shot is ineffective and Ramiel retaliates, but thanks to Rei in Unit 0, Shinji is able to fire a second shot that wipes out the angel. Shinji rescues Rei from her entry plug in a manner which mirrors Gendo saving her from a previous test gone awry. And I had glossed over that before, but yeah, we flash back when Shinji is seeing, I don't remember exactly when it flashes back to that, but it
flashes back before Shinji even hid the glasses in Rei's room.
Okay, so we as the audience would have known what those were then.
Right.
So the camera pans up to the moon.
To the moon, baby.
So,
but you say, hold on, before we get there, you say all this as if it happened similarly to the TV series. It didn't happen. I guess the end result does.
Yeah.
But you're missing like specific parts where like the angel also shoots a beam at the first shot to then make it go wonky and make it miss. But instead in this one, Shinji's shot actually connects, but I guess doesn't connect with the core of it, so it doesn't kill it, and then it retaliates.
Like grazes
that threw me off.
The core. Yeah.
Yeah, that threw me off as like someone who was expecting, it to miss, or I'm like, oh, did I miss the first shot? Is this the second shot? Because he connected. Nope. The angel is just stronger.
It's all there to subvert your expectations for sure.
It's the very tiniest thing. Weirdly, I really like the weird screamy noises that Ramiel makes when it's firing the lasers.
Yeah.
And of course, all of the crazy geometric patterns that it's getting into, and then gets more and more bonkers as it's kind of like trying to output more energy to take down these Evangelions.
Really flexing that 3D skills that they have in this.
I always love to give the play-by-play of when my wife happens to be in the room when these things. And yeah, when Ramiel screams, she looked up from her phone like, what the heck? What's going on here? Yeah, it's so blood-curdling. I love it.
One thing I missed from this sequence was when Misato goes to get the rifle or whatever it is, the gun.
Oh, yeah.
Rei, she's like, okay, Rei, pick it up. And so Rei, in Unit 0, opens up the roof and then grabs the freaking gun. None of that in this movie, but whatever.
Yeah, I missed that. I also missed the giant text because episode 6, which is the whole Operation Yashima part, I feel is very iconic with it's big, bold, white text for everything whenever they're like, we go to this location, or like, now we're picking this thing up.
Yeah.
And granted, it kind of works in a TV show because each episode is kind of its own thing. So it's like, okay, that's the visual storytelling that episode 6 is doing. Yeah. And in a movie, it's kind of like, well, we've got to have everything feel very similar and flow through.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one thing that also I missed in the TV series that the movie, it just goes too fast or something like that. But it's like, as soon as Misato and Nerve are all organizing this plan, it's very like, you see the professionalism in Misato being able to like, okay, you do this. Tell me how far we need to be to attack this thing. Do this, do that, do that. It just gives you a sense of such, everyone is in. Everyone has their job and they're doing it. And then it cuts to Shinji being a little bratty 14-year-old kid, and it really gives you that sense of uneasiness. Like, it's just a fucking kid that everything's relying on. All these professionalisms have everything ready, but now it's all on this kid. You don't get that kind of feeling in the movie, I feel.
Yeah, Shinji doesn't struggle as much here, and it's like Misato says to Gendo, like, believe in your son. This is kind of also telling us this is a different Shinji.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
This is a Shinji who's going to make different choices as we go along.
And that this Misato, I think, is a bit less of a mess. Because we only have that one time where she's, having a beer with Shinji and everything.
Instead of seeing the daily occurrence of it happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've panned up to the moon, and now we're on the moon. And there are several coffin-like boxes and a long blood-stained streak. Kaoru Nagisa enters out of the 5th box and has a discussion with Sele-01, who in the series was Keel Lorenz.
Yes.
Who was the cyborg.
Cyborg?
We only know he's a cyborg because of End of Eva. When he tangs out, Doug, you see like his robo spine left behind.
The whole Kaoru and Seal thing is, I don't understand anything about them.
Who we'll get into that in a second.
But I guess we'll have to get into that, yeah.
Kaoru says the 3rd is still the same and mentions looking forward to meeting Shinji by name. There is a giant behind Kaoru with a mask like Lilith's, but from the TV series. And then Beautiful World by Utada Hikaru starts playing.
What?
You forget another thing that Kaoru says is that he will bring him happiness,
Yes.
like the third. So it's like, okay, interesting.
Wow. I wonder what this all insinuates.
So let's talk about, we've been talking about the differences between the original series and this movie a little bit. So we talked about how the oceans are red. We did not talk about the giant outline of a humanoid creature on a hillside in the early part of the movie.
What?
In the opening shots that are kind of showing Tokyo 3,
As
there's a
Sakiel's
shot of it.
attacking. Yeah.
Yes. There's a hill with a bunch of skyscrapers that have kind of been tipped over. And there is, the white chalk outline that you do when you're a detective, like, oh, we found the body here.
Right.
Obviously we moved the body, but we got to have that. So there's one of those, and it's ginormous on a hill.
Already on the hill?
Right. And the hill is red, which I didn't pick up before, but I was like, oh, okay, interesting here.
What?
So
Is this saying that this is like the events of the TV series already happened?
We'll get into that. There are a lot of
Oh my
clues
God,
in this
what?
movie. Yeah. So Nerve's logo is different. It's
It
twice.
is?
It's different twice over. So the first one that we see is totally brand new, where the Nerve logo is like in a box. You can kind of make out the leaf, but then it's an upside down apple, which I never even knew it was supposed to be an upside down apple until
oh, yeah.
I started looking into this. I just thought it was some weird shape or something or like the leaf that turns you into Tanuki Mario or something. So I never knew what that was supposed to be. And then the one that looks like the more traditional Nerve logo from the TV series, the V is slanted now. And then the God's in his heaven, all's right with the world is like rotated around a little bit. So implying that maybe they're using a new logo, but the old logo is still some places. But it doesn't really mean anything. Just another difference that we go along.
Takes
Which
time
one
to
is
do
the
a
one
rebrand.
with like the nerve and then the leaf is like a marijuana? Is that just a fan art?
Probably.
If-
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about the reordering of events when Unit 1 goes berserk. Lilith is introduced quite early on, but we didn't talk about this. Her mask is different.
Yeah, you didn't bring that up until the
Right.
very end. What?
Her mask looks much more like Sakiel's mask now.
Sakiel. Oh, like
The fourth angel.
The fourth angel?
The first angel
Or the
we see.
the
but yeah.
TV series is third?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whoa.
The first angel introduced for the audience, yeah.
You give me
But-
tingles.
So when I'm saying that the mask on the giant behind Kaoru on the moon had a mask that looked like the mask Lilith had in the TV series,
Whoa.
which had this with the 7 eyes on it and then the like upside down triangle and like the moon crater texture to it. We see Kaoru awaken. We're just introduced to Kaoru way too early versus the show, so we don't see him till episode 24 of the series.
Oh my
And
God, really?
Here he is at the very end of the first movie.
Dang.
And we're on the moon. This boy ain't wearing a spacesuit.
Yeah.
He's not wearing anything, but he's able to breathe and speak in space without any atmosphere.
So we're right away introduced to the fact that he is otherworldly. And I think that's because, Doug, I think we're supposed to know who Kaoru is. So
yeah.
when this movie first came out, there were a lot of theories about what was going on, but the first and most prevailing theory, and I would say this is the most prevailing theories all the way through, is that we're in some sort of time loop.
Okay.
And that
I
Kaoru
can see that.
opening up out of that fifth box might imply that this is the fifth time he's been doing this. He's been around a few times.
Oh, those aren't just the previous angels. Those are probably his other incarnations. or
Past
time
awakenings
whatever.
or something. The red
Wow.
blood streak on the moon from when Lilith's neck splits open in End of Eva and sprays across the moon. Yeah, right.
Oh, shit.
There's a theory that I've started to subscribe to,
All right.
which is not where that blood streak is from.
Does it involve
but
future spoilers?
in that, yes.
So-
So basically, which we can get to maybe in the second movie, probably would be a good spot to do it. But
Oh my God.
So there's a lot of people thinking that was like, is there a time loop? Was the TV series the first one? How we keep going through this? Kaoru seems to have some familiarity already with Shinji and which decision Shinji has made or might make.
Mm-hmm.
He calls
Which is
Shinji
super
by
odd.
name
Yeah.
and he says, "This time I'm going to make you happy," implying that this again has been done before.
Yeah.
And
now us as the audience know that thing is Lilith down there that Nerve has, as opposed to them tricking us into thinking it's Adam.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping future spoilers in the future, a lot of people thought the red water had to do with the way End of Eva leaves off. Because obviously in Eva, the TV series, the water's blue. And at the end of Eva, the water's red. So going into this, people thought that had something to do with it. So there was just so many, right off the bat, there were so many clues that this could be sprinkled in. Well, yeah, sprinkled in, and then a heavy dump right at the end that this is some sort of time loop situation. So it's funny
leave you what the fuck?
It's funny to think about Anno wanting to rebuild Eva for a new audience, but then he goes in and says now this is for the OGs right at the end of the movie.
I love this scene's just for you guys. I mean, it's very clear, I think, that these movies are a sequel, a continuation of critically acclaimed Neon Genesis Evangelion Campus Apocalypse, a series where everybody is having fun in high school and then fighting ghosts with guns. I mean, that's very clearly this is a sequel to that. It's not a joke. It's a real manga.
This now definitely gives me Final Fantasy VII Remake vibes, where it's all you can play it as a newcomer. You can come in and enjoy it. And for the OGs, there's a lot of stuff sprinkled in there. Yeah.
I think a lot of us who played Final Fantasy Remake got to a certain point in that game and went, oh, this is the rebuild. Yeah. Which was before 3.0 plus 1.0 came out, which is fun to think.
Oh.
So we didn't even really know anything one way or the other. And who knows? Maybe we still don't. We'll find out in a future movie.
Just Japan has good writers. That's what we can sum it down to.
So for this movie, I've, seen the TV show. Oops, bumped my mic real bad there. For this movie, I've seen the TV show many, many times. So coming into this, okay, we're retreading a lot of the stuff. And I think whenever I've gone back to watch these films, I usually skip this one because I'm yep, I know. It's the same thing. Lilith's there, though, and Kaoru's on the moon. Watching this again, it's very fun to see kind of reanimated stuff that we've seen before, sticking very close to the source material. There's even some shots where it's okay, it's not so much an exact tracing, but there are things there were idiosyncrasies with these frames that are kind of kept. I'm thinking when Sakula is attacking and one of the planes falls down and Shinji is blocking himself from the explosion, his hands are drawn super fat and chunky for what those the animator in 95 animated it. And here it's the same thing, the same stubby fingers. I'm okay, cool. They wanted to keep this, but I feel because it's so shortened up and I miss a lot of the atmosphere and the emotional buildup of the TV series, that I'm kind of I really don't enjoy this movie because it's lacking all of that stuff. Even though it's pretty, I don't feel that's enough to make me really love it.
It feels like Shinji runs away 3 times in this movie, and I'm just none of them mean anything ananymore. But and watching the TV series, each runaway felt validated and important.
So I think this is going to sound mean, but I think this is the worst of the rebuilds because it's for the most part, just retelling it. But Randy, the way we talked about Death True 2 and End of Eva last one, about Death True 2 being a tone piece for End of Eva, I feel that this is that for the rebuilds. And I feel personally, I would want to watch this in any rewatch of these movies because it's a slightly different Shinji, especially at the end. And I feel it helps me establish who that version of the character is going into the next one, because Shinji is a different character in these rebuilds.
To get those next 3 movies, we need this first one.
Yeah.
To be the way it is.
And I think it's a fantastic jumping on point for people. I think to show someone this. Yeah, like I said, it touches on a couple of spoilery things, but doesn't tell you them much about them. And
you're still probably left just as confused as you would watching the TV series about them.
You're going to go into the original series and they're going to show you Adam Or they're going to show you Lilith, tell you it's Adam, and you're going to be like, wait, but I thought that was Lilith. And you're not going to be sure
if
what
you
you're looking
remember
at.
that, I sure would remember that. I didn't even notice the masks are different or whatever.
So I think it's great. You guys are kind of middling on it, but
I'm just very like the pacing just kind of killed it for me after watching the TV series just before.
I think for what it is, go ahead.
I think when it came out, I was so crazy hyped. Like there was a number of trailers that came out beforehand, seeing something that I was familiar with and, has that 90s anime look and seeing like, okay, they're kind of keeping that, but they're refreshing it.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. Basically I was just on the lookout for any little changes. I'm like, oh, what did they change? Like, how did they update this? But now that it's kind of behind me, I suppose I'm just kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's required. But it's not super.
The cell phone thing. I remember asking you guys off of the podcast about like there's a scene in the TV series where Masato gives not just you don't see her give it to him, but she mentions giving Shinji a cell phone. And I was curious before watching the movie, like how do they handle that now in this day and age when this movie is released to the general public? Cell phones are so prominent in the world. Everyone has one that it's not a special scene to have. They completely cut that out of this movie. The like there's still the scene of Misato talking to her, what's her name, the blonde haired Ritsuko, like that same, but then cuts out that part of her mentioning giving Shinji a cell phone, like specifically, and I was like, there it is. I knew they had to address it by not addressing it. Love it.
So we have some thoughts here of people wrote in. I asked for people to give their impressions of 1.11 or anything that they might want to get off their chest about it, and that we would read it here on the show. Do you guys happen to have these tweets pulled up?
I do, yes.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start off. I'll go ahead and start off with this one from Footlong Shoe here. Evangelion 1.0/1.01/1.11 covers the most familiar territory in the new theatrical edition series by a mile, so I'm kind of underwhelmed by it. But it is a good introduction and has just enough new touches to pique interest. Plus, the updated Ramiel is really cool. Ramiel, the sixth angel.
The diamond-shaped one.
Yeah, the screaming one.
Yeah. Super cool.
So, it's kind of what we talked about. This is largely a retelling, but does some really cool stuff with it, and is it intriguing.
I'm on board with you 100%, Footlong Shoe.
Yeah.
Jacob Sawyer says, was really excited when it came out. I like the subtle differences in the designs. Really looks terrific. I mean, they really had... Eva had been such a moneymaker for the last 10 years for this coming out that it was kind of like, yeah, we don't have any restraints. We can just go all out on this. And it really shows. They didn't pull any punches at all.
There's still a lot of charm in the 90s anime, just the style it looks in. Yeah. But this is like you said, Randy, it looks like they still kept it 90s, but just with the modern, they use Photoshop to color and everything.
Yeah, and I think the redone Unit 1 is probably my favorite mech design of all time.
Now that you pointed out, I like that more.
Yeah.
I think there's a figure coming out in Tamashi stores exclusively in New York on Friday that I have to pick up.
So that metal build one?
I think so.
I'm going to be the contrarian and say I dislike the rebuild design for Unit 1. I get it.
You're not alone.
It makes a lot of sense, but I definitely really prefer the original.
Yeah. The softer colors of the original. I mean, it's for the medium. The movies are much more higher contrast in general.
Yeah. It serves the function that it needs to.
Yeah. We don't get much of like a full shot of it. If we do, it's like a second or two before the action kicks in. So it's hard for me to like pinpoint like, oh, that looks different. I wouldn't have never guessed that if you didn't tell me.
We'll get into some redesigns in the next movie that I don't like or don't prefer. I'll say I do not prefer, but that's for a future movie. Doug, do you have the next tweet pulled up?
I don't. I lied. I don't have any X's.
So Austin called Turn, quote, Tex Austin, and I think he's making a Turn A Gundam joke here.
Yes.
At Turn Tex. I felt this film was fine enough entry point for new viewers, and for those familiar with Eva, it's a fine review and had hints of new content to keep them back. What I find the most interesting is the announced production timeline, which we went over early on. So they were all supposed to come out within a couple years of the first one coming out.
Like The Matrix.
And the original idea for this was that they were going to stick pretty closely to the show until the final one, which was going to be a new ending. And
the run times are also buck wild here. The first one, 90 minutes. The second one, 90 minutes. 3 and 4 were going to be double features, kind of like with an intermission, much like End of Evangelion, I would assume.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to be 45 minutes and 45 minutes. I can't tell you how long 3.333 is, but Thrice Upon a Time is one of the longest traditionally animated movies of all time at like 2 hours and like 45 minutes. It's crazy long for an animated film.
3.33 is 96 minutes long.
Okay.
It is the shortest of all of them.
Wow.
So this is what I'm saying, Doug, about these movies got away from them conceptually and literally, became way longer, came out way later.
I'm kind of glad it did, because the end results of everything I liked.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Doug, when you were watching, did you watch the post-credit scene?
Post-credit scene?
So
that's right.
Each of these movies will have a post-credit scene.
What?
In just like the TV series, where it's the
same song that plays
and telling you what's going to happen in the next one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And fan service, all right? Is that what they say? Yeah.
Savasu.
So, and they kind of aren't necessarily lining up with what actually ends up being in these movies, because
no way, really?
The movies kept getting further and further away from them and changing in development. So
that's actually hilarious, though.
Did you guys have any final thoughts before we go ahead and wrap this up?
I would say, watching this, man, I'm so excited to get to 2.22. I love that one so much. I'm sorry, I'm playing my hand here, but oh my God, I love it, and I can't wait to see it again.
For
me,
I feel
like that one, I'm gonna have a lot more questions.
With the next 3 movies that we're gonna watch, it's a real Sophie's choice over which one I like the most. I cannot.
Yeah.
I think 2.22 is such a solid movie and has a crazy high ending. 3.33, I think, is the most bonkers Ava type experience of them all. And then I think the 4th one is just a masterpiece in its own right, having to carry on its shoulders, wrapping up 25 years of a franchise.
Oh my God,
and so there's a lot to say about these movies going forward. I couldn't rank them. And I'm just going to say that right now. We're not going to rank these movies. This one we just watched is at the bottom. The next 3 I can't rank.
You can't rank.
Yeah.
The 4th is automatically the best because of the ending song. So that's my that's my play for it. The voice actors for this, I don't think we touched on that. But everyone's back, right? For the most part, every voice actor came back to voice in these rebuild movies.
Yeah.
Japanese.
Japanese,
yes.
Which is so fun. You know, we watched Death True 2 and End of Evangelion last time, and I didn't really pay attention to it. And then there was just like one line in the rebuilds where I heard Aoba, one of the nerve techs, the guy with the long hair, who when he gets tanged and End just sees a bunch of rays. I always forget that it's the same guy who plays Dio in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure playing him. But he just like gave one leer. I'm like, oh crap, I forgot that's Dio. It's just got a very distinct voice. I'm just like,
I always forget Kaji is Beerus.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look out for that now. But it's cool, but it's also like, oh, Misato sounds older now. Like, I don't know if you guys
Mitsuishi.
Yeah. But I mean, it's still. I think I would prefer that still, to have the voice actors come back and do the reprisal roles, even if they do sound a little off character. Because even Toji sounded a little too old.
Yeah, I noticed that too with Toji. He sounds like he's an 80-year-old man.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
Megumi Ogata's voice is timeless. I don't think she can ever not sound. She's Shinji.
Oh, great. Shinji was great.
Now, if
you might have heard her in other things. She's Kurama in Yu Yu Hakusho. She's Sailor Uranus in Sailor Moon. Yukito in Cardcaptor Sakura. Like, just a whole bunch of cool characters.
Now, I would say Ava is probably one of the most iconic English dubs of all time, the original series as well. There's so many lines in that are just like stick in your head, right? If you were an ADV dub fan who watched the original series and then went into, well, first of all, you're already betrayed kind of by the director's cuts and then End of Ava because they had to change so much of the cast. And then these movies are like half the cast. But didn't they get the original Gendo back? Or am I misremembering that?
I don't believe they did. They got Shinji and Misato back, and I think that's it until the second movie, which then they got Tiffany Grant back for Asuka. But yeah, there's very few returning. I'd have to check back for Toji.
No, Toji is now Raditz. Justin Cook, I think.
Oh, okay, Justin Cook. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I think I was thinking of Thrice Upon a Time, where hearing Brett Weaver, who, I don't know, like I don't tend to watch a lot of dub stuff too often. There's a bunch of things from ADV back in the day where was kind of my bread and butter growing up. So I would hear him in like Sorcerer Hunters and Evangelion and other such things. But hearing him back in Thrice, I was like, oh, holy crap, they got Brett Weaver back. He sounds like he's 80.
Not to get into the details of why I'm excited about this, but I'm so excited to talk about Funimation and what happened with 3.33 because, oh man.
I have no idea.
There was a relationship that ended there. So.
The wait for that DVD and Blu-ray, man, was hell.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I heard some things about that.
Yeah. Randy and I will tighten up our research before we broach that subject because I don't want to get anything wrong.
I got to watch that one with the lost dub for it. For I think the original theatrical cut of 3.33 was shown here, and then there were years apart before then the home release came, and they changed a lot of it. And I think just this past year, it leaked, and now we actually have the original dub for that, which is kind of wild. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that.
Ava is definitely one of those things. I watched in English first, but now I can't imagine watching it in English again. I'm very strictly only watching the show in Japanese. The Japanese cast blows it out of the water, dude. You're telling me?
I guess so.
Akiyama from the Yakuza games is Kaji?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I watched this thing with the ADV dub, the TV series, so many times, and then I think it was finally in like 2010 where I was like, all right, time to do my 20th rewatch of this TV show. I'm going to do it in Japanese this time, and I don't think I've really gone back other than when the Netflix dub of the TV show came out. I watched that. I'm like, I actually really like this, and then I did a rewatch like 2 years ago and watched it again. With that
guess I never said how I didn't even watch the series at all until late, like I think 2010, somewhere around then when the rebuilds were coming out. I'm like, yeah, let me check this out, and I enjoyed it, but I never understood it. But it's still something about it. Even though I didn't understand it, I would always constantly like have urges to rewatch the series. So I maybe rewatched it about 3 or 4 times. And I think this is the first time I'm watching it with actual context, thanks to you guys. And things are making a little more sense now. Mm-hmm. So it's glad to have you guys there with me. So yeah.
I can't wait to get further in, Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to lean on us. Some of the later stuff.
I'm there.
Yeah. And as you're watching the TV show, please by all means drop in the group chat and be like, "What's the deal with this?" Because I'm sure Ken and I will just be furiously typing to like answer because we love to talk about this.
Multiple people are typing.
Dead Sea Scrolls. What the fuck?
Oh, okay, let me get you. Yeah. Here's like 4 wiki links. Let me give you the TLDR.
Is it so convenient that all these angels come in and like, okay, the angel's going to give you 6 hours of prep time to figure out your plan. Like, I love the idea of like, because of that, you're able to see Nerve handle all these ideas and do this all stuff, but it just feels weird.
Everything was orchestrated by Sele. That's all you got to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything.
It's not right. Like, why don't they just send 2 angels? Like, it's like that kind of thing.
Yeah. The rate at which everything was foretold, and Sele knew that.
Sele knew that. Yeah, Sele is what I have the most questions about, but I guess we'll get into all that.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get into a lot.
Like, it's so later. Convenient that the angels start coming as soon as the Avas are ready to be piloted or something.
All planned. All planned.
Okay, that makes more sense. That it's not just random, like, coincidence.
No.
It's
all planned so they can get the S2 engines.
S2 engines?
So, from the original TV series...
We're going to be talking for 3 more hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's okay. This is fun. You joined because you had some questions, and I'm sure, like, there was stuff
And if you're this far deep into the episode with us, you're with us.
So, Avas, right? They got to be plugged in because they run out of power, and then they have batteries. So the S2 engines, based on the super solenoid theory from Dr. Katsuragi, Masato's father. Yeah, is basically what keeps the angels not needing to be plugged in. So by adapting that technology into an Eva, now you don't need battery power, which is what Unit 1 does on its own against that one angel by eating it, ingests its S2 engine, and now Unit 1 no longer needs to be plugged in. So, that's always been the plan by Sailor. Yeah, after that angel attack. It is plugged in in that one fight with, I think it's Armisiel, the one like ring thing that kills Rey. But it's like, I'm like, was that an animation error, or was that just like, let's plug it in just in case?
Oh, so even the characters know that it doesn't need to be plugged in anymore after that. That's also what confuses me a lot, is like, who knows what and who doesn't know what, that kind of stuff.
Half the fun of the show is who knows what and who doesn't know.
I guess, totally.
Yeah, so Seele also orchestrated when the Katsuragi expedition needed to happen.
Really?
At like a technological advancement, because they knew once we trigger this is how much time we have until Sakiel shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you tell me what Seele is? Like, are they humans?
They're humans.
They
They're
always
like
appear as those like pillar thingies.
They're
right, and
ancient religious organization of like lunatics that are trying to evolve humanity, become closer to God.
So
God.
And are basically...
It just doesn't matter what they look like. That's why they're the pillars.
You see all of Seele at one point.
No, you see like 5 of them.
Okay.
Instead of like the 13. But yeah, there's...
In a hologram talking to Gendo in the TV series?
They're all sitting around a table.
He's one got a big nose.
Yep, that's one of them. No, that's a different dude. I don't think they all have names.
But that is
right.
Seele, but from then on, you just see them as the pillar thingies to represent them.
Yeah, they didn't shower that morning, so they don't turn on their webcam for the Zoom meeting. They just go audio only.
One of the ideas I had when I was going to make our layouts was that it was going to be sound only, but then I was like, no, I'll just put us in the LCL.
Yeah.
You want to see our faces.
Hey.
No, exactly.
Well, I think that just about brings us to the end of this here episode. Yeah. We could be here all night talking about Eva theories and everything.
And I would love it.
Questions. So thanks for watching. We always have such a great time here talking about stuff, talking about Dragon Ball and talking about Eva here is something that we're all pretty passionate about as well. And thank you for joining us on this journey. I know it's weird when you're sitting here on a Dragon Ball channel and you see an Eva video or an Eva podcast pop in and you're like, what? And
it's not April Fool's yet.
Well, here it is. So Randy, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Saber_Breaker on pretty much anything and everything.
Yeah. All right. And Doug?
Jabaz Doug everywhere.
All right. And you can find me at some variation of Detective X. Some a little more real than others because I have to change my name because other people took Detective X in different places. So, but I'm not going to pay for a check mark, so you just have to assume that it's me. And then if I'm speaking another language, well, then you have to know it wasn't
me. Then you know.
So, yeah. So thanks as always for watching, guys, and we'll catch you matanator.
Bye.
See ya.